You were never supposed to make it. Not in their eyes, not in their world. They counted you out before you ever had a chance to begin. You were the last thing they expected, the anomaly in their perfect equation. They had it all mapped out. Who wins, who loses, who fades into the background, forgotten. And you were assigned a role before you even had a say in the matter. You were meant to struggle, to break under the weight of expectations that were never your own. They built the system. They wrote the rules. And you were never meant to survive outside the lines they drew for you. But here you are, still standing, still breathing, still refusing to disappear. You see, they underestimated you. They looked at your silence and mistook it for weakness. They saw your struggles and assumed you'd crumble. They told themselves you were nothing more than another casualty, another story left unfinished, another dream left to rot in the graveyard of what could have been. And maybe, for a while, you believed them. Maybe their voices became the echoes in your mind, the chains around your ankles, the whispers in the dark that told you to give up. They made you doubt yourself before you even had the chance to believe. They convinced you that power belonged to someone else, that greatness was reserved for those with the right name, the right connections, the right bloodline. And you were just another faceless shadow, a ghost moving through the world, hoping someone might notice you, might give you permission to exist. But what if I told you they were wrong? What if I told you that the very thing they dismissed, the fire in your chest, the hunger in your soul, the relentless refusal to bow, was the thing that made you dangerous? What if I told you that the world isn't built by those who follow the rules, but by those who shatter them? What if I told you that every whisper of doubt, every moment of rejection, every time they told you no, was actually the foundation of your rise? You don't see it yet, do you? You don't realize that the very reason they tried to bury you was because they saw something in you that even you couldn't see. They feared you before you ever knew your own power. That's why they tried to break you early. That's why they tried to drown you in doubt before you could learn how to swim. Because they knew what you would become if you ever figured out the truth. And now, that moment is here. No more waiting, no more hoping, no more asking for permission to be great. This is it. This is the turning point. The moment where you decide, do you stay in the role they assigned you? Or do you rewrite the story? Do you let them win? Or do you make them regret ever doubting you? You were the last thing they expected, and now they're paying the price. They never saw you, not really. You walked into the room and their eyes passed right over you like you were a ghost. You spoke and they nodded absently, already forgetting the sound of your voice. You tried, again and again, to prove yourself, but the world responded with nothing but silence. You were dismissed before you even had the chance to be considered, overlooked, ignored, a footnote in someone else's story. An afterthought in a world that only remembers the loud, the powerful, the ones who take up space like they own it. And you were expected to shrink. That's the weight of being underestimated. The feeling of being reduced to something small, something insignificant. The pain of being seen, if you're seen at all, as less than what you are. They decided who you were before you had the chance to define yourself. They looked at where you came from, the mistakes you've made, the battles you've fought. And they wrote your ending before you even had the chance to start your story. And the worst part? They made you believe it too. For years you carried that burden. The whispers, the doubts, the side eyes, the unspoken expectations that you would never amount to more. The world tried to make you a shadow, a background character in your own life. It told you to stay quiet, to stay small, to accept your place. It gave you a box, neatly labeled with everything you were allowed to be, and dared you to step outside of it. But who are they, really? Who are the ones who decided your worth? Maybe it was the voices of your past, parents, teachers, so-called friends, who planted the seed of doubt before you even had the chance to dream. Maybe it was society itself, telling you that people like you don't rise, that the odds were never in your favor. Maybe it was your own past failures, clinging to you like chains, whispering that you'll never break free. Or maybe, just maybe, the loudest enemy has always been the one inside your own mind. The psychological weight of being disregarded is heavier than anything you've ever carried. It doesn't just sit on your shoulders. It digs into your bones, warps your reflection, makes you second-guess every decision, every dream, every moment you consider reaching for more. It's exhausting, isn't it? Fighting a battle that no one else even sees, struggling against chains that no one acknowledges, waking up every day and wondering if today is the day you finally break under the pressure of it all. But there's something they never accounted for. They underestimated the fire inside you. They thought if they ignored you long enough, you would disappear. They thought if they placed enough obstacles in your way, you would give up. They thought if they dismissed you, belittled you, cast you aside, you would accept your fate. But they were wrong, because something has been building inside you. Something fierce, something relentless. Every rejection, every slight, every moment you were told you weren't enough, It didn't weaken you, it sharpened you, it fueled you. It turned frustration into hunger, pain into power, and now, the boiling point is here. This is the moment when silence becomes a roar, when the invisible one steps into the light, when the one they disregarded makes them regret every single time they looked away. They thought you were nothing, but they forgot pressure. Pressure doesn't break the strongest, it forges them. And now they're about to learn exactly what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. There comes a moment when the weight becomes too much, when every step forward feels like dragging chains through sinking sand, when the air grows thick with doubt, and no matter how hard you try to fight, you can't seem to escape the voice whispering, maybe they were right about you. Despair doesn't strike like a lightning bolt. It seeps in like poison, slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up and realize it's wrapped around you, suffocating every ounce of fight left in your body. It starts with small moments, subtle hesitations, quiet withdrawals, unanswered messages, dreams that were once bright now fading into the background like old photographs losing color. At first you tell yourself it's just a rough patch, that things will get better. But days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before you know it, you're standing at the edge of a chasm, staring into an abyss that feels bottomless. You were told to believe in yourself, to rise above. But how do you fight when everything in you feels broken? How do you push forward when the weight of your past drags you backward? You've tried, God knows you've tried, but every time you clawed your way toward the light, something pulled you back into the shadows. Your fears, your doubts, the voices of people who never believed in you. All together they built a cage around you, a prison made of memories and mistakes, of failures and expectations you could never quite meet. And maybe the worst part? Some of those voices weren't just strangers. Some of them belonged to the people you trusted, the ones who should have stood by your side, the ones who should have seen your potential before anyone else. But instead, they became the architects of your doubt. They smiled to your face while planting seeds of insecurity in your mind. They told you they believed in you, yet their actions screamed otherwise. They left when you needed them most. They turned their backs when you reached out for help. They convinced you that maybe, just maybe, you weren't worth fighting for. The roadblocks were endless, the doubts were relentless. Every dream you built seemed to crumble before you could step inside it. Every time you found a moment of hope, reality came crashing down, reminding you that the world doesn't wait for the underdog. It doesn't care about effort. It doesn't care about good intentions. It only rewards those who win. And right now, you felt like anything but a winner. There were nights when the silence was unbearable, when the weight of failure pressed against your chest, making it hard to breathe, when you stared at the ceiling and wondered if any of it was worth it anymore. Maybe they were right. Maybe you should stop trying. Maybe it's easier to just let go. Because what's the point of fighting for something that keeps slipping through your fingers? And in that moment, when hope felt like nothing more than a distant memory, you almost did. You almost let the darkness consume you. You almost accepted the role they wrote for you. You almost became the person they expected, a shadow, a ghost, another forgotten name in the crowd. But the thing about darkness, it doesn't just hide things, it also reveals them. And what you were about to realize, what they never wanted you to know, is that even in the deepest abyss, something inside you was still burning. A flicker, a spark, the last piece of you that refused to die. And that spark, that's where everything changes. Amidst the darkness, a whisper calls out, faint, fragile, almost drowned beneath the weight of everything you've endured. It's been there all along, waiting. Even when you swore you had nothing left, even when the world convinced you to surrender, something inside you never did. They tried to break you, life tried to bury you, but here's the truth. The fire inside you never truly died. They pushed you to the brink, but they didn't account for the one thing that makes you different. Resilience. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal, the losses, the failures, and the nights filled with doubt, you're still here. And if there's even a single ember still burning in your chest, that means the fire can still rise. And then it happens, the moment of realization. It doesn't come with a grand revelation. It doesn't strike like lightning. It happens in the quiet, in the stillness. When you're sitting with yourself, tired, beaten down, but alive, you suddenly see it, everything you've survived, everything you've endured, the things that should have destroyed you, the things that would have broken a weaker soul, and yet here you are, still breathing, still fighting, still capable of something greater. Look at history. Look at the ones who came before you, the underestimated, the disregarded, the ones the world laughed at, ignored, pushed aside. They weren't supposed to win, either. They were too small, too broken, too different. But the funny thing about underdogs? They have nothing to lose and everything to prove, and that makes them dangerous. That makes them unstoppable. So what if they were wrong? What if every person who doubted you, every voice that told you you'd never make it, was mistaken? What if the limits they placed on you weren't real? What if you were never broken, never weak, never meant to fail? What if everything you needed was already inside you, just waiting for the moment you'd finally see it? The whisper in your chest grows louder. It's been waiting for this. For you to stop searching outside yourself for validation, for you to stop believing the lies they told you, for you to recognize what was inside you all along. Because this is the moment where everything shifts. This is the moment where the fire returns. Everything changes the moment you reclaim your power, the moment you decide that you are no longer a victim of circumstance, no longer a prisoner of doubt, no longer at the mercy of a world that tried to convince you that you weren't enough. This is the shift, the instant where resilience takes root, where the story stops being about what was done to you and starts being about what you're going to do next. They never expected you to rise. They never accounted for the possibility that you might refuse to stay broken. In their minds, you were already defeated, a casualty of life's hardships, another name lost in the crowd of those who gave up. But they underestimated you. They mistook silence for submission, struggle for weakness, pain for surrender. And now they don't know what to do with you, because you are still here, and you are no longer waiting for permission to exist. This is what they never saw coming. The quiet one, the forgotten one, the underestimated force they assumed would never be a threat. But what they didn't understand was that underdogs don't just survive, they evolve. They grow sharper, stronger. Every ounce of pain becomes fuel, every scar a reminder that nothing can break them. They don't just endure their suffering, they transform it into something unstoppable. You have been shaped by fire, you have been tested in ways they will never understand, and instead of being destroyed, you have become something else entirely. The darkness didn't kill you, it forged you. The heartbreak, the failure, the loss, the rejection, it all became the foundation of your strength. And now the decision is in your hands. Do you stay in the shadows where they thought you belonged? Or do you step forward, unafraid, unapologetic, ready to take what is yours? This is the turning point. The moment where the past no longer defines you. The moment where you choose to rise. Not because someone told you to, not because you need to prove anything to them, but because you owe it to yourself. Because the power has always been yours. And now, it's time to use it. They never thought you'd get back up. They counted on your silence, your hesitation, your fear. In their minds, you had already lost. You were supposed to stay down, to accept your fate, to live out the script they wrote for you. They were so sure of it, so certain that they had broken you beyond repair. But now, they don't know what to do, because you didn't just rise, you came back stronger. You took every setback, every rejection, every insult, and you built something indestructible. The world isn't ready for this version of you. The one who refuses to be ignored, the one who no longer asks for permission, the one who doesn't just exist, but commands every room they walk into. They wanted you weak. They wanted you to doubt yourself. But every obstacle they placed in your path only made you sharper. Every hardship only fueled the fire inside you. You have turned every failure into a stepping stone, every loss into a lesson. And now, the very things that were supposed to break you have become the reason you cannot be stopped. The doubters, the critics, the ones who laughed at your dreams. They don't have much to say now, because there's no argument against results, no excuse that can erase the truth of your success. The best revenge? It isn't anger, it isn't words, it's standing tall in the face of those who thought you would never make it, and showing them exactly what they failed to see. You are no longer looking for approval. You don't need validation. You don't seek acceptance from people who never believed in you to begin with. You walk with a different energy now, one that comes from knowing your worth, from understanding your power, and the world reacts accordingly. The same people who dismissed you now struggle to make eye contact. The same ones who ignored you now whisper your name. The same ones who doubted you now wonder if they made a mistake, because they thought you'd stay down. And now, they're paying the price for ever believing that you would. The person they once knew no longer exists. The version of you that hesitated, that questioned, that doubted is gone. You have shed the skin of your past, broken free from the weight of expectations that were never yours to carry. You are no longer defined by who you were, you are only defined by who you choose to become. And the world is taking notice. There is something different in your presence now, a certainty, a quiet, unshakable force that demands respect without a single word. They no longer overlook you, they no longer dismiss you, because they can feel it, your energy, your power, your refusal to be anything less than unstoppable. The ones who once doubted you now tread carefully. The ones who underestimated you now watch in silent disbelief. And the ones who left you behind, they live with the regret of knowing they could have stood beside you, but instead they chose to doubt. You no longer wait for permission. You don't ask if you're allowed to take up space, to have a voice, to be great. You don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You move with the kind of authority that doesn't seek validation, it demands it. Not because you need it, but because you have stepped fully into your power. This is your story now. Your life, your rules, your future. No one else holds the pen, no one else gets to decide where you go from here. You were never meant to be a supporting character in someone else's narrative. You were meant to be the author of your own destiny. And from this moment forward, that's exactly what you are. Because the rise is no longer something you dream about. It's happening right now, and nothing and no one can stop you now. The truth was always there, buried beneath doubt, beneath fear, beneath every lie they made you believe. But now, as you stand on the other side of everything they tried to use against you, you see it clearly. You were never powerless. They didn't give you strength. They didn't create your resilience. It was inside you all along. Every struggle, every failure, every night spent questioning your worth, it all led to this. Every tear, every scar, every moment where you thought you were finished was nothing more than preparation for the person you were always meant to become. The pain wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to forge you. And now you stand here, unbreakable. But now comes the real question, the challenge that separates those who dream from those who do. You didn't come this far just to make it halfway. You didn't fight through the darkness just to stand still in the light. This is your time, the moment where you decide whether you will fully step into the power that has always been yours. Will you rise completely, without hesitation, without apology? Will you claim everything they said you could never have? Because make no mistake, the world is watching now. The same world that once ignored you now has no choice but to acknowledge your presence. They see you, they hear you, they feel your impact, and they know this is only the beginning. Because you are no longer just existing. You are no longer waiting for life to happen to you. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are shaping it. You are rewriting the rules, breaking the boundaries, setting the standard. This is the beginning of your legacy. The moment where your story becomes one that others will look to when they feel lost, when they need proof that rising is possible. You were never meant to be forgotten. You were meant to leave a mark so deep that no one could ever erase it. And now, that's exactly what you're going to do. There is no going back. No retreat into old fears. No slipping back into the shadows where they once expected you to stay. The version of you that doubted, hesitated, and questioned their own worth is gone. You've come too far, fought too hard, and risen too high to ever fall into that trap again. Self-doubt is no longer your home. Playing small is no longer an option. From this point forward, you move with certainty, with purpose, with the kind of confidence that refuses to be shaken. But don't mistake this moment for the end of the journey. This is just the beginning. The road ahead is long, the challenges will keep coming, and there will always be those who try to undermine your rise. But none of that matters, because you are no longer waiting to be saved. You are no longer looking for a way out. You are creating your own way forward. The path isn't given, it's made. And you are the one who will carve it. Remember this, power was never something you had to earn from others. It was never something they could give or take away. It was always yours. And now you stand in it fully, completely, without apology. Let that truth settle into your bones. Let it guide you through every battle, every obstacle, every moment of doubt that tries to creep back in. You are no longer fighting for permission. You are fighting because this is who you were always meant to be. They thought this was about proving them wrong. They thought this was about revenge, but they were mistaken. This was never about them. This was about reclaiming what was always yours. Your power, your purpose, your place in this world. And now it comes down to this, your move. No more waiting, no more excuses, no more questioning whether you're ready. You are ready. The world will either step aside or it will be forced to recognize the force you have become. But that choice isn't theirs to make, it's yours. So tell me, what are you going to do with it?